I don't remember a first overall selection in the NFL draft at the quarterback position that's ever been more forgotten than Cam Ward. And like, in part, it's Shedeur, in part, it's the Titans and the relevance that franchise does or doesn't have with clicks. I don't know. But the world is not paying attention, Frank. And it stuns me. I still got to remind everybody, Cam Ward was clearly the best quarterback in this class. He was clearly the number 1 overall pick for the Titans for a reason.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be good. I've maintained this, that he just got lumped in with, this quarterback class is bad. Well, yeah, it was a great quarterback class, but there is one really elite prospect in it. He would have fit in just fine in the top 5 of last year's draft with all those great quarterbacks who had great rookie years. And I like one thing that Jori wrote last summer that really shaped my opinion about Jayden Daniels was just how hard he was working, how he was in the building all the time, soaking everything up. It really led me to believe Jayden Daniels was going to have a big rookie year. And you hear the same things about Cam Ward all of a sudden, like Cam Ward talking about what are you going to do the rest of the summer? And he's just like, I'm just going to throw until my arm falls off and get in my playbook. And like that, I trust him on that because he's a guy who built himself up from nothing. He started at Incarnate Word. He had no FBS scholarship offers. His first college game was in front of like 3,000 fans. Like this is a guy who knows what it is to work his way up through to become the first overall pick of the draft. I think Cam Ward's in a good spot. And I thought about the Titans situation too. And we think about the Titans being a bad team, and they certainly are. But they've invested a lot of money and draft picks into the offensive line, which I don't think is going to be that bad. They have 2 pretty good running backs in Pollard and Spears. Calvin Ridley, he could do worse as a number 1 receiver. They have put enough around him that I think he can have success right away. If Brian Callahan's the quarterback whisperer, offensive guru that the Titans thought he was when they hired him. So I think Cam Ward hits the ground running. And he's, like you said, Fitz, he's a guy nobody's talking about, but yet I think we're going to get into September, October and be like, wow, Cam Ward is the next star quarterback in the NFL. This guy's a really, really good player, and shame on us for not talking about him for months and months.
Yeah, I would say that Cam Ward loves that he's flying under the radar. As you'll know, I wrote a story on him going into the draft, and his family, his friends, even some quotes from Cam kind of reflected that. He's like, great, talk about Shedeur, talk about someone else. Like, I don't want this spotlight. I also think it will allow him to develop at a certain rate. I mean, I would even say Bryce Young got that to a degree, and I know it took him some time, then he got benched, then he came back. But I would wonder if Bryce Young had gotten benched in the way he did last year in New York, in Pittsburgh, with the Cowboys, would the noise have been too much versus obviously it helped. I'm sorry that Andy Dalton got into a car accident. I'm not trying to make light of that, but he had to come back without an option because of the car accident that Andy Dalton got in and sprained his thumb. And so I think you kind of ask yourself, like, sometimes when you're in these smaller markets by NFL standards, it actually allows you to develop at a different rate, particularly when you don't have the spotlight of, like, Cleveland has become a big spotlight, whether or not it's a big city. I would say that when you look at what the Titans reporters were saying out of minicamp, they said that Cam Ward went 42 of 58 in 7 on 7 in team periods, which I was laughing because Minnesota Vikings coach Kevin O'Connell, actually had thanked his reporters for not doing a bunch of rep counting of J.J. McCarthy. And I know we'll get to J.J. McCarthy, so I hate to be the person who is parroting the rep counting, but we need some sort of numbers to work with here. And I think what was interesting is they kind of talked about how he had this stretch without interceptions. And then on the final day of minicamp, he did have 2 interceptions, also 2 touchdowns. But I think that, in my opinion, if you don't have interceptions if you're a quarterback, you're not throwing an interception in OTAs, in training camp, it's actually not a good thing. I was at the Philadelphia Eagles last year when Jalen Hurts had his final day of on-field teamwork, and he threw an interception. It was the first time he had been intercepted the whole camp. And to me, I'm like, good. You don't want to go into the season with this streak from training camp where you've never had a chance to break down an interception with your coach, especially if you're in your first year with the team. You need time to break it down. You need to be trying things and getting a sense with your receiver of, hey, why did that go wrong? What did the defense see? So I actually think that's a good thing. And Cam Ward's kind of this guy who's working quietly behind the scenes in some ways, but also been trash talking all of the defenders. And so I think it's this great balance of confidence, but also I'm not trying to make this about me.
There's a magic to the ability, I think, to fly under the radar in Nashville that will help Cam Ward. I genuinely believe that. And I don't say that as a slight to Nashville or to the Titans. In fact, it's just one of those cities. You can walk. I've walked into coffee shops in that city and had, Ben Folds at one table and Taylor Swift at another, and nobody's bothering either of them. And then, you could talk about Derrick Henry at his peak and guys like Taylor Lewan that have been huge to the franchise. They can walk into any bar, anytime, anywhere, and they don't really get special treatment. They don't get special eyeballs. They don't get special focus. And I've often said that one of the challenges about playing in New York is that if you have a bad game and then you want to take your family out to get pizza afterwards, you are going to be reminded by the person that drops off your pizza that you sucked that day. Like, that's just part of playing in New York. That isn't part of playing in Nashville. So I think for the right personality that's really self-driven and understands exactly who they are, what they need to be, that doesn't necessarily need to be everywhere with every eyeball to feel like they're some sort of a rock star everywhere they go. I think Nashville can be a great place for a player to find their best potential within themselves. That's part of why I really like Cam Ward. My only question for Cam is just, do we have, Frank, I use this phrase too much, do we have enough proof of concept on Callahan as a head coach to be able to get something out of this offense? I don't know. We know that Callahan had tremendous success when his quarterback was named Joe Burrow. That's all we really know about Callahan right now. So it's when I have questions about Cam Ward, it isn't because of the city or the quarterback. It's because of the organizational structure that I don't necessarily trust. If I had to right now bank on who's going to fail who, I would bank on the Titans failing Cam Ward before Cam Ward fails the Titans. But I do think he is in a situation, in a city, in an atmosphere, in a climate that will allow him the opportunity to develop. And that may be exactly what he needs. He wouldn't get that in every market, but I think he gets that there.
Yeah, I definitely agree on Callahan. We might look back and it's the same thing with Caleb Williams and Matt Eberflus, where we're like, yep, should have dumped him last offseason when you had the chance because he just wasted a rookie year. Maybe Brian Callahan's awesome and Will Levis was the problem. Your guy, Will Levis, Fitz. Yeah. That I mean, maybe man. But we're gonna find out this year. We're gonna find out if Brian Callahan's a good coach. Because if you can't get Cam Ward off the ground at all, then they got to move on, and you probably wasted his rookie year. But we'll see. I think Cam Ward's. I just think Cam Ward's going to be good right out of the gate. I think that he's just that type of dude. He's had a lot of experience in college. He's played at multiple colleges, which I do like now. It's a new thing, but I am coming around to that being a really, really good thing for a quarterback. And I think he's going to be just fine. And I think I don't think Titans are going to win a ton of games because their roster's not very good yet. But I think they're going to come out of this season and say, yep, we were right to draft Cam Ward. We were right to start him in week 1, and we got the right guy going forward.